the first GOP debate, August 23rd, and we know that there are a lot of requirements to get on that stage, including polling and campaign contributions. Will we see you on that stage August 23rd?
I feel pretty confident that we're going to meet the requirements for polling and the individual dollar donations. A lot of folks have been supportive of us, and it's growing every single day. And also the question on the pledge. I've said that, my issue is not that I won't support the Republican nominee. My issue is I won't support Donald Trump. But guess what? Donald Trump has even said he's not going to sign the pledge, and he's unlikely to show up to the debate because ultimately he doesn't want to have to answer for why he lost in 2020, and he lost. The election was not stolen from him, it was lost. Why was he incapable of growing the party in 2020 also by us losing the Senate, and then how he prevented us from winning in 2022. So I feel good that folks are going to be able to see me on the debate stage.
Okay, and going back to that, just to add some context here, that loyalty pledge, you're signing loyalty to support the eventual GOP nominee. And your stance, though, has been that you will not support Donald Trump. So will you not sign that pledge at all? Because that will keep you off of the debate stage.
Sure. Ultimately, we need to hit the requirements in order to get to that point. And so once we do that, we'll engage with the RNC and see how the process evolves. In my adult life, I've never signed a contract that I didn't have amendments to. Unfortunately, there's too many other people that are running for the president on the Republican side that are unwilling to challenge Donald Trump because they're afraid of him. Now, I'm not a political scientist, but I have won tough elections, and you don't win an election by kissing your opponents behind.
Okay. So if the final ticket is former President Donald Trump, President Joe Biden, who are you voting for?
Well, look, that's so far away. My goal is to vote for myself, and that's my plan. That's what I'm focused on, and that's what we're going to do and focus on over the next 25 weeks. I always have to remind people that running for president is not one election. It's actually 57 elections, the 50 states, our territories, and this voting begins. Early voting is probably going to start in late December. We're 20 plus months away. My goal is not to peak next week. My goal is to peak in the winter and be ready to surge and be ready to scale. And so my focus and attention is making sure I'm the nominee, and we're the little engine that could. We're going to do what folks think can't be done. I've proven an ability to do that in the past, and we're going to use those same skills in this election.
Yeah, and let's talk about the past. So when you were in Congress, and shifting now to border security, you were in Congress, you represented approximately 820 miles across the border. And so now you turn on the news any given day and you see what's happening there. It's not only impacting our state of Texas, but really states across the country. What's your plan for border security and really reforming our immigration system?
Look, you're starting to see in Democratic towns and states what you've seen along our border, where you have elected officials that are frustrated with the current policies. This is a crisis at our southern border. It began under Donald Trump, and it got significantly worse under Joe Biden. The first thing we have to do is stop treating everybody as an asylum seeker. Asylum is real. People should be allowed to apply for asylum, but when people abuse the asylum process, those that actually need it are the ones that are getting impacted. Two, we should treat the human smugglers and drug trafficking organizations as terrorist organizations. That means using all of our national intelligence resources against this problem, working with our partner nations in order to dismantle the infrastructure that is bringing in 5.5 million people that have come into our country illegally. But an important piece, we got to streamline legal immigration. And at a time when...
How do we do that?
Look, it's real simple. It's increase the guest worker program. It's 2023. We should have a system in place that if Texas needs more hospitality workers, or Massachusetts needs bus drivers for schools, or California needs tech workers, and Americans aren't applying for them, we should be able to say, hey, here are the number of visas that are available. That's something that's going to require... There's most Republican primary voters and Democratic primary voters are supportive of this. But unfortunately, both parties love to use this issue as a political bludgeon. Oh, and by the way, let's fix DACA while we're at it, right? These are, hundreds of thousands of young men and women that have only known the United States of America as our home. We should be making sure that they have a pathway to stay here legally.
Okay, so when you were in Congress, your focus was really technology and cybersecurity policy. And you've also been a candidate who's been very vocal about AI technology. And here in Austin, it's frightening to some people because they feel like jobs will be eliminated over the next few years because of AI. And so how do you ensure that local economies aren't impacted by AI?
Most people are shocked when I say, as I've crisscrossed the country, what are some of the biggest issues I get? A top 3 issue I get asked about is artificial intelligence. People know my background in it, held the first hearings on AI in Congress, wrote the first national strategy on AI for the country, and that I've been involved in some of the most cutting edge AI companies. And 65% of Americans are afraid that a robot or an algorithm is going to take their job. Here's how we prevent that. Step 1, AI has to follow the law. Let's not carve it out. What we know about social media today would have we would have done things differently 20-something years ago when we carved it out of the Communications and Decency Act and said social media doesn't have to have the same standards that you have to have on television or on radio. So we have a lot of rules on civil liberties and civil rights. Let's make sure AI follows the law. Point 2, really powerful AI. You need to have a permit. Have NIST, this is an organization called the National Institute of Science and Standards and Technology, to pop the hood, make sure we're doing the right things, and that the company that built that really powerful AI is addressing the most important security issues of the day. If you and I wanted to go buy or build a parking lot, we would need a permit. So let's make sure really powerful AI has a permit. The US government needs to be using AI. Why does it take a veteran months to get an appointment at the VA? Why does it take months to get your passport renewed? This should be done in minutes, and AI can help that. And the last point I would make is we should every learner should have an AI tutor in their pocket. The tools exist to have that. I was lucky as a kid to have parents that helped me with my homework, and I had a big brother and big sister who helped me with my homework. Actually, it was my big sister more than my big brother. But we have an infinitely patient tutor that can help a student with geometry or calculus, or it could help someone that's wanting to transition to a new industry, become a plumber or truck driver or something like that. And so those are things that we can be doing now to make sure that we take advantage of technology before it takes advantage of us.
Okay. And you warned about what you call a new Cold War. You referenced that earlier with China. What exactly does that mean to you, and how does our country need to respond?
Sure. The Chinese government is trying to surpass us as the global superpower. That's not my opinion. That is what the Chinese government has said about themselves in English since at least 2015. And they're doing that by trying to be the global leader, in some of the most pressing and cutting edge technologies. 5G, AI, quantum computing, synthetic biology. And if the Chinese government surpasses us as the most important power, has the largest economy in the world, what does that mean for us? That means our dollar doesn't go as far as it used to. That means our 401k and retirement accounts don't last as long as we expected them to last. It means that our kids and our grandkids don't get access to the best paying jobs. Those are the stakes. And how do we solve this problem? We got to make sure that our allies are with us on these issues. We got to make sure that we continue to have the federal government and the private sector work together on these advanced technologies, so we're the ones that are leading in this. Now we have to be growing our allies as well. And so this is why the Chinese government is the biggest existential threat to the United States, because it could upend the way of life we have known for the last couple of decades.
As we wrap up, you've been called a moderate, which many know can be a bad word in the Republican Party. It seems like this could be an uphill battle. I mean, you said yourself, you recognize that you're the dark horse. This could be an uphill battle in getting to that debate stage and really getting the nomination. So why run? Is there a gap that you saw in the current climate that you said, I need to fill that gap? Why run now?
2/3 of Americans do not want Donald Trump or Joe Biden to be our two nominees. 2/3 of Americans want something different. 70% of the country thinks we're on the wrong track. And here's what I've learned representing a 50-50 district when I was in Texas, 50% Republican, 50% Democrat. Regardless of whether if I was in a ruby red town or a deep blue city, people talked about the same things. They want to be able to put food on their table, a roof over their head, and make sure that people that they love are healthy, happy, and safe. And I also learned that way more unites us than divides us as a country, and that we're better when we're together. And so this is the lane, or this is what has been missing in our discourse, and why so many people don't vote in primaries. Only 23% of Americans vote in primaries, and you can split that right down the middle. So yeah, there was a gap. And the thesis is to attract those people that want something different. They want someone who's not afraid to criticize Donald Trump, but who's articulating that vision and who's offering common sense in these complicated times.
Okay, Will Hurd, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.